Okay, in this video we're going to talk about the income tracker. So the income tracker again was a additive maybe 2 or 3 years ago into QuickBooks. So we hadn't had it in our previous videos here, so it must have been less than 3 years ago. But if you go into your customer center, right, we have the income tracker up top here. So it should come as a default. If you don't see it, it's probably because you're not in the most recent edition of QuickBooks. You can also get there by going to customers and then down to income tracker down below here. So once I open it up, it's very visual settings in here, which I really like that. So it kind of gives me across the top some different information. I have 8 estimates that are open. I have 0 sales orders in this company file. I have time and expenses that need to be billed, right? So we'll take a look at that in a minute. 8 open invoices that are unpaid, 1 that's past due, and then any invoices that have been paid in the last 30 days show up here as well. Okay, all of these are interactive, so if I click on them, it'll give me the details for just that information, right? So I have 1 overdue, it just shows me 1 invoice. Here it shows me all of the customers that I need to bill for time and materials, or time and expenses. When I double click on this, it will take me in to open up the transaction and then give me all of that time if I had expenses, mileage, and items that I do need to bill for. Okay. If I wanted to clear or show all, I just come over here and hit clear show all. All right, so going down, so I can also filter by a particular customer. I can filter by different types of transactions, so journals, sales receipts, etc. The status, open, overdue, paid, and then as well some generic date ranges in there. Okay. Once I get down below, all of these are sortable, right? So I can sort by the different columns by clicking on those. Each of the transactions is going to have a little bit of a different action item that can be tied to them, each of the different transaction types. So an estimate, as an example, can show, I can come over here and select an action, convert to an invoice, convert to a sales order, mark as inactive, print row, email row. Okay, so if I did that, so again, I have a whole bunch of old estimates that let's say estimates, and then we could change the date range to last fiscal year. I could come in here and select multiple estimates, and then I have a batch action down here where I can batch email those estimates out, right? I can also come down here and say I just want to see, go into create an estimate as an example. But on the actions here, what's super helpful about it, and it's a little bit different in the bill tracker, but I can go into mark it as inactive. So again, if I have a whole bunch of old transactions in here and old estimates that I want to close out, I can't select all and batch mark them as inactive, but I can come in and say inactive, 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 which before we would have to go into each estimate, maybe run an open estimates report, double click on the estimate, right? Mark it as inactive, save and close, open up the next one. Okay, so it could take a little bit more time. So again, mark as inactive, it just comes right off my list here. All right, so that's really helpful. On the invoices, if I go to my actions, I can receive a payment on the invoices here, right? Again, print. Time and expenses, I can come in and create the invoices, or I can choose the billables that I want to create an invoice for. Okay. And then we have unapplied payments that are sitting in here as well. So if I have an overpayment or anything like that, I can go in and print those out. But it's nice that it adds those unapplied payments in there for me. A couple things to note with this. So the overdue here, so if you watched my other video on Collection Center, right, it's driven by the reminder date. The overdue here is driven by the due date here. Okay, so right now it's showing as just 1 as past due. I'm sorry, it's also driven, so it's driven by that date, but it's also driven by your computer's date, right? Because in these sample files, it thinks it's 2020 right now. And in the Collection Center, it understands that it's 2020. Whereas in the income tracker, it uses your computer date to show whether things are past due or not the date that the system thinks it is. So anyway, so there are certain features in QuickBooks where it does pay attention to your computer's setup. So if it's looking funky, make sure to check out, make sure that that date and time is correct, okay? So I can, if I edit a transaction, right, I can come in here and just double click on it to edit it. Right now it says the due date is 1/1/2015, and that's why it's showing that this balance is past due. If I do it on this guy now, and I click on the date here, and I go back a few years to 2015, right now that's affecting the transaction date, but it's not affecting the due date. Okay, so I'm going to say save, or I'm sorry, I'm going to go in here and customize my data layout. Right, so I can add that due date, because right now the due date's not showing on my screen. So if I choose due date to add to my screen, now the due date is affected, I guess based on my terms, because my terms said do not due upon receipt. And then I can say save and close. So now when I look at it, right, I have more in my overdue. So again, it's driven by the system date, your computer date, and then that due date is what it really looks at. So if things aren't showing up in there, okay. But again, it's a nice feature to come in and get a quick overview on your AR side, your income side, to see what's going on in the company, and also gives you quick access to, choose to invoice billable time and expenses, move estimates over to invoices, receive payments, just like one nice centralized place. But it does add another place. Remember, I always say in my videos, there's about 9 different ways to get to the same end result in QuickBooks. So it definitely added another place where we can get to that same result in QuickBooks, but it's very helpful.